So Colonel Shaffer joins us. Always great to have you on, sir.
It's good to be on. Thanks for having me.
Well, in the 15 minutes we've got, you've got the floor. Let's get the intel data dump from Colonel Shaffer.
Well, first, I think your point is well taken. Look, we have to understand that this town, Washington, runs on momentum. That momentum is driven by what we know to be the bureaucracy. And I've said this in several interviews. Anyone who denies the deep state denies the very existence of the U.S. government. The bureaucracy, the elements which consist of the bureaucracy, all these small things make up big things. And I think the ultimate example to help your audience understand why there's a deep state is Lois Lerner. Lois Lerner, simply put, was a Clinton appointee who decided that she wanted to become part of the bureaucracy permanently. And then over the years, Alex, she got moved around. She ended up at the IRS as a career person. Well, she never really changed her color. She was always a partisan. She was always a Democrat, cut from the cloth of the Clintons. And she simply burrowed her way in like a tick. And so this is why there are people out there who are all throughout the bureaucracies consisting of the deep state. It is what it is. And let me point this out for the audience to understand as well, is that they tend to forget that the deep state went against Barack Obama on something called Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay. The deep state, those who are against the idea of closing Gitmo, the Pentagon, fought tooth and nail and still open. So as much as people want to say it doesn't exist, if you just look around, you just think for yourself, look at the evidence, you know it exists. What I think is more sinister, obviously, is that now you have a resistance movement built within it. And I do believe, Alex, for all the reasons that we've talked about in the past, and as a matter of fact, last time we talked was on the eve of the election, all the things which existed, we talked about them regarding why.
And you predicted a Trump victory, I should add.
I did. We were together on that, yes. And I felt very strong about the fact that should he win, and he did, he's going to have a lot of work to cut out all of the cancer that the Obama folks put into the government. And that's the other part of the deep state now. It doesn't only exist, we know it exists. Now it's organizing, self-organizing, if you will, to actually be a lot more effective in resistance. So that's something we all have to be concerned about.
Well, sure. When I said you were part of the deep state, like you said, from the resistance, Americana, the bureaucracy, the agencies are all part of that tissue. But of course, the bureaucracy is where the power is now. The fourth branch of government. And so there it is, the denial of it existing, or them making fun of Conway saying that household appliances can spy on you when the CIA director in Wired magazine 4 years ago said that. It's just a crazy denial of reality.
And there's a point. It's like Rachel Maddow coming on last night and the guy she had on saying, oh, Donald Trump must have mailed this to me. Really? That sounds like a conspiracy to me. All these wacky conspiracies they bring up with, it's on their side. And I'm sorry, yes, the deep state has examined, and Alex, I'm saying this for your audience because they love the fact that we have these conversations. The fact that the CIA was disclosed to have access to all these technologies that can go into all of these things in our house indicates that, yes, of course, they can, anything that has a computer chip on it, anything from a cell phone to a microwave, anything that has a microchip can be used for exploitation and intelligence collection. That's just the way it is. But if Trump's folks say it, it's conspiracy. If they say it, it's just, well, it's well and good. It's completely the complete double standard.
I want you to get to the points you want to cover. You know more about any of this than probably anybody, but 55 days into his administration, other than not liking this Ryan bill, I mean, he's really delivering. He's got the elites, the special interests so upset from your sources in D.C., the Pentagon, you name it. How is Trump doing in this civil war? I mean, they're calling it a civil war where America's trying to reinsert itself into its proper role, the people, the constitutional role, the rebirth of America, like he said, January 20th. I mean, how is that goal going?
Well, I can tell you that the people I talk to, I've always talked to, are trying to do the right thing for the American people. They're trying to stay out of the politics. But simply put, in this town, Alex, everything is political. Even when you try to not be political, you become political. So I think what we've seen is those who wish to support Mr. Trump have been doing their best to do their duty, to actually be loyal to their oath of office. Others have decided that there's no reason to maintain an oath of office and are going against him. I think the play out of the whole healthcare thing, and by the way, I'm one of those affected badly by Obamacare. I actually lost a plan I was very happy with. So when I see these figures about the stats, the congressional estimates saying that 14 million people are going to lose their, well, they didn't predict I was going to lose my health care, and I did. So I'm with the president on this. I think the CBO It's become politicized. I think clearly people like me and others did suffer. I talked to my congressman about this. He blew me off. A guy named Connolly just didn't want to hear it, that somehow the Obama plan didn't work out for me. So this is what I'm talking about regarding the fact that people who do see what Mr. Trump's trying to do want to sign up and help. And I think you're going to see the government bureaucracy, like the CBO, like other elements, do whatever they can to flat out lie, if they have to, about what they think they need to say, whether it's based in fact or not. And I think it's just about undermining Mr. Trump.
Just gut level, dead reckoning, Colonel Shaffer, looking at what Trump's done, where the different power structures are, where the Democrats are, where the Republican power structure is. Where do you see Trump, in 6 months? I mean, overall, I think he's over-delivered in many ways, but at the same time, look, I'm not looking for some military response or police response here, but you can't have newspapers every day and Snoop Dogg and movie stars every day saying kill the president and trying to organize it, and we're being censored all over Google and Facebook and Twitter. InfoWars is, and we're seeing like Gizmodo bragging, yes, shut off InfoWars, basically kick him off air. I'm seeing real authoritarian stuff at us, like they're the Venezuelan government or something, or the Cuban government against their own people. And at some point, I'm just saying, how much does Trump take of this when it's all clearly un-American and illegal?
I've called it Soviet-level wrongdoing. That's what you see here. The idea of silencing you and others is exactly what the Soviet Union would have done. And this goes to the deep state and the Obama administration's attitude. I think there's two things he has to do, Alex. First, frankly, he's got to make an example of someone like Loretta Lynch. Loretta Lynch, who recently came on and said that there needs to be blood in the streets to support the resistance. I think that's sedition based on my reading of Title 18.
When you have the former attorney general, she has extra gravitas. That's like a declaration of war against the republic.
Precisely. Secondly, I think he's got to do more to weed out the deep state operatives on both sides. Look, I'm talking about folks in the Bush administration who were equally disdained by President Trump and what he's doing.
Or McCain. Let's go back to Loretta Lynch, because this is intriguing. Where does the confidence come from to call for major military action against the president or civil war, and then that is outrageous.
Well, and that's the issue. It's like these folks can say these sort of things with impunity and never be held accountable. And what I'm saying is that, look, you need to start holding people accountable for their words, especially if they are meant to disrupt the elected officials incoming into the current government. And the other thing Mr. Trump has to do, Alex, to that point, he's got to pick good people. He's got to continue to push that. We've seen very few appointees come in since 20 January. We see the principals only. This is something that needs to be fixed.
He's only got one level in. Well, what's the word on that? Well, why is that happening?
Frankly, the word is the Pentagon and DHS and others are kind of bickering back and forth with the White House. The White House, I think there's some political infighting there going on. I don't think everybody, even in the White House, necessarily wants to go along with Mr. Trump's agenda. And I think there's some infighting from those who are, I would say, more traditionally neocons who are trying to do their own insinuation, I think. And I don't think it's good for the government that they listen to the neocons. So I think that's something that we need to consider. And then third, and most important, I think the president has to continue to reinforce the fact that he's telling the American people the truth. He's trying to act in their interest. And frankly, things like this tax return thing only serve to back him up and show how the mainstream media has become a complete circus and a complete joke.
Sure. How important is it to get veterans who are so respected, who under Obama were just thrown to the side, had to cover their faces up when they said, let's not go into Syria, be Al-Qaeda's Air Force? You kind of helped lead the charge exposing that with Congress behind the scenes. And I mean, now I think veterans and active duty, it's the commander-in-chief, shouldn't they all come out because they're trying to claim he's this Russian agent and stuff and say, no, he's America, he's making the country great, he delivered, and we support him, to just let the liberals and others know, and people that are on the communist Chinese payroll, we know that's the actual foreign enemy, to try to derail our true president.
Right. Well, your point is well taken. First on Syria, yeah, look, we've been backing the wrong side there the entire time, and I think a lot of folks, Senator Rand Paul, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, are both on the right track, trying to do some legislation to prevent us from arming our enemies. I think it's a good idea anytime you look at that. And simply put, yes, you've got to look at how we've got to get the corporatists out of the way. There's foreign interest here. And that's what I find ironic, Alex, is that you can see foreign interest all over the place, but all of a sudden it's all about Russia. And let me tell you, if you actually start peeling that back, we're going to find that a lot of the key Russian contacts were not with Mr. Trump, but with Ms. Clinton. When you look at the uranium deal.
Hasn't it always been the Democrats in bed with the Russians?
Right. I think they are. I think they're completely in bed with the Russians. I think that they've always been in bed with the Russians. And the Russians, frankly, Alex, from what I've seen, what they had planned, what the Democrats had planned, Obama and Clinton, is a revenge campaign against against Mr. Trump had he lost the election. They were going to try to put a stake in the heart of Mr. Trump by trying to create this whole fiction of the Russians being behind the campaign. I think this was going to be the thing to completely and permanently in his political desires, because I think they saw that he would come back. So I think
well, that's a great point. I mean, they have all these made-for-TV movies where the president's a woman, where the right wing's fighting her, where there's a civil war, where Trump's a Russian. All their propaganda is overlapping as if she was still going to win. The fact that she didn't win when they were so confident is really why they're in such disarray.
Precisely. But I think they're still continuing to play the plan out as best they can, because I think they were laying the seeds for this, Alex, going back last year to try to make Mr. Trump into the so-called pawn of Putin. And I don't think it could be further from the truth. And again, let me be clear, the Pentagon and others have decided that we're not going to work with the Russians. We're going to examine things. I know for a fact that in Syria, for example, there's a decision to not work with the Russians. And what we're doing there is to make sure we don't kill each other by fratricide. We do coordinate, but we do not conduct, joint Spetsnaz special operations for any number of reasons.
Wow. Okay. In the 5 minutes we have left, I want to get into a whole nother subject because the media has misrepresented this. We know that that former head of Blackwater, who's got all these huge connections, Eric Prince, came out and said in Breitbart, well, I have law enforcement sources that Weiner is going to get basically indicted for child porn. Now they admit months later that they're looking at indicting him. So Prince was right there. Our sources in the NYPD, two separate ones, said it's much worse. All this is going on. Then the media misrepresented it onto some pizza place and made up a bunch of stuff to try to distract off onto that. We're not saying anything happened at the pizza place. But clearly, I know you have a lot of sources looking at this. We know the British government's been infiltrated and is using this as blackmail. We know it went on at Penn State, other places. And I've been told by some sources separately that you had been investigating this. You can correct me if I'm wrong or not, but I wanted to just get your point. We know Jerry Epstein obviously got convicted. All this stuff's going on. Bill Clinton with him. What can you say about that in closing?
Well, I can say this. Look, Eric Prince is a friend, and I do believe his sources are impeccable on this issue. There's something that we've known here for a while, Alex, here in Washington, is that there are overlapping interests which will use criminal networks such as the pedophiles. They will use that for political purposes. I don't know if you're familiar with the term brownstoning. Brownstoning is where you have the traditional honeypot. You may have a congressman, some other high government official, enticed to sleep with a female, an attractive female. But then what that female does is takes it to another level. I mean, that's not good enough anymore. What they do then is try to get you in bed with an underage girl, telling you, oh, she's only 20. And then they get you on tape, they videotape that, and then you are theirs. So this brownstoning thing is something I think has become something that we need to examine as a methodology that's been used, I believe, effectively to subvert political figures here in town. And I think there's a couple that have been known in the past that have functioned well. And I think Barney Frank was probably one of the ones actually involved in this sort of thing before people understood it completely. So what I'm saying is that we need to examine the potential the relationships between terror organizations and criminal enterprises for purposes of trying to essentially establish control and access to key leaders here in Washington. And trust me, there's a lot of folks who are susceptible to that sort of thing here on Capitol Hill. I'm a block away from Capitol Hill right now. So we have to understand our enemies will use whatever methodology they can to subvert our political process.
And compromise. I know you got to go in 2 minutes. Then let me ask you this. I was told by our sources that they were getting ready to roll up thousands of the procurers of kids in California, Pennsylvania, you name it. Boom, Trump gets in. It's like 2,500 arrests now. The media, though, when they find 30 plus kids in cages, well, it's in the news one time. You'd think that'd be everywhere. One kid's missing is all the news it should be. So the fact that it's being covered up, and then I was told this would happen before, it's like, wow, is Trump really, green-lighting this? Thank God law enforcement. What was keeping law enforcement before from doing it? And I wonder how far this is going to go. Is that why Democrats and others are so desperate? Just in the last 60 seconds, any other points on that or sources?
No, you're completely correct. I think that's why you've seen law enforcement move forward, be very effective. I think you're going to see more. Donald Trump has tweeted out on this. It's an important issue. And that's why the other side is being think about it. Why would the other side stay silent on this where it's such a key issue, unless they have something to do with it and protecting it? And I think that's why you've not seen a lot of action in the Clinton White House or the Obama White House, because there was no interest, because I think they were part of it.
I'm going to put your lower third back up on screen in a moment here, but 474 arrested. I mean, that was just months ago. This is just every day it's happening. No coverage other than the first article, then it gets shut down. I know you've written a bunch of best-selling books. I've read 2 of your books. Well, and of course, you got a big Facebook, you name it. Colonel Shaffer, in closing, where's the best place for people to keep in contact with everything you're doing?
Just follow me on Twitter, T-Spooky. I think a lot of your folks, your fans already follow me, and I know you and I follow each other. So
Absolutely.
And then Facebook, Anthony Shaffer, and then Tony_Shaffer.com is my website, and I work for the London Center for Policy Research, londoncenter.org, and so you can keep track of everything we're up to.
Sure. Well, I respected what you were doing in Congress and exposing all the stuff with Saudi Arabia 15 years ago, but then getting to know you and just seeing you at the center of every big expose, bringing these folks down. Very proud of the work you're doing.
We just want to fix things out here as best we can. So.
All right. Thank you, Colonel Shaffer. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.